We do have number 4 as the information vote for the reapportionment. I'd like to skip over that and come back to it and go to item 5. We'll go discussion and vote on leasing the farm. Is there a motion on
I'd like to make a motion.
the, okay,
I'll second it.
what's the motion?
I'll read the motion here. Similar to the one we had 2 weeks ago, only all the dates, of course, had to be changed. The ordinance to lease the county farm pursuant to 55 ILCS 55-1049.2, which is the law that when I get done and this is seconded, the first thing I'd like for discussion is Nicole will answer questions and explain how this law says that we can lease the farm. Whereas Shelby County holds farmland known as the county farm, and it's got a legal description, but it's consisting of 196.3 tillable acres. Whereas by law, it permits the leasing of this real estate acquired by the law I mentioned. It permits the leasing of real estate acquired or held by the county for any term not exceeding 99 years, when in the opinion of the county board, the real estate is no longer necessary, appropriate, required for the use of, profitable to, or the best interest of the county. Whereas the Shelby County Board has determined by 3/4 of its members that the county farm is no longer necessary, appropriate, required for the use of, profitable to, or for the best interest of the citizens of Shelby County. Be it resolved that the Shelby County Board agrees to lease the county farm for a term beginning June 11, 2021 and ending on February 28, 2022 to the highest responsible bidder to be selected by the Shelby County Board. That's the motion, and that's the ordinance that I'm presenting.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the ordinance
And everybody
To-
received this, every board member received this.
it's to lease the county farm with, which one do you have in your hand that, I didn't catch the last 2 words. Is it the county board or the committee?
Well, this is the only one, it's the county board will approve the high bidder.
Okay, so motion on the floor is to lease the farm at the discretion of the county board. Jesse seconds.
And I would like Nicole to explain the law and answer some questions before we start the discussion.
Nicole, like that.
Sure. I'll just give a general explanation again. As far as the Attorney General opinion goes, I did ask for it January 11th of this year, when I've been in office about a month. They serve all 102 counties of the state of Illinois. They indicated they handle opinions in the order that they are received and will not give a timeline on when an opinion may be coming. I do know that it has been assigned to an attorney and someone is actively working on it. When I contacted the office, they provided the opinions that we've all been talking about from the 1970s and stated the statutes and the law have changed since the 1970s. If you'd like an updated opinion considering the changes in the law, please submit a request for a written opinion, and I did so, and we're still waiting for that. The statute that we have been discussing is 55 ILCS 5/5-1049.2, and it does state that counties are permitted to lease real estate, and real estate is defined, the legal definition of real estate is land and generally whatever is erected or growing upon or affixed to the land. Counties are permitted to lease real estate acquired or held by the county for any term not exceeding 99 years if the real estate is no longer necessary, appropriate, required for the use of, profitable to, or for the best interests of the county. And the authority to lease pursuant to this statute must be exercised by an ordinance passed by 3/4 of the county board. The land was purchased in 1867. It was a poor farm. We don't have poor farms anymore, so having it now, unless it is leased, it is not necessary, appropriate, required for the use of, profitable to, or for the best interest of the county. And as I stated before, there are no cases that address this statute. It's not gone to the appellate court. So I ordered the transcript of the legislative debate. The lease that was submitted in Kankakee County was not presented to the legislature when they debated this. The language that was used is that they could lease, and the bill applies to the entire state, but Kankakee is the one that brought the issue, that they can lease either to a government agency or to private interests. Quote, they see this as an opportunity to gain some additional revenue. So the General Assembly debates that I just read indicate that putting otherwise unused property to use in order to generate revenue rather than lie in waste is a public purpose that supports the operations of government. So the question we have is, what is a public purpose? The Illinois Supreme Court has stated, quote, it has been repeatedly held that what is a public purpose is a question within the discretion of the legislature, and statutes are presumed to be constitutional. Another quote from the Illinois Supreme Court, the consensus of modern legislative and judicial thinking is to broaden the scope of activities which may be classed as involving a public purpose. They refer to other state Supreme Courts and state that they acknowledge that the broadest expansion is perhaps reached in the areas of economic welfare. And another quote from the Illinois Supreme Court, the determination of what is for the public good and of what are public purposes are questions to be decided in the first instance by the General Assembly. In this respect, the legislature is vested with a large discretion. Its determinations are entitled to much consideration. That is why I ordered the transcript to see what was the intent of the legislature in passing this statute. How are we supposed to apply it? There are other statutes which exist that the legislature has passed since the 1970s Attorney General opinions. Statutes override Attorney General opinions. They supersede them. If they're different, if a statute is different from an Illinois Attorney General opinion, the statute controls it's actually law. Attorney General opinions are advisory only. And since those 1970s Attorney General's opinions, the property tax code passed a statute contemplating the leasing of public property to lessees for other than public purposes. 35 ILCS 200/15-60 states, all property belonging to any county or municipality used exclusively for the maintenance of the poor is exempt, as is all property owned by a taxing district that is being held for future expansion or development, except if leased by the taxing district to lessees for use other than public purposes. So they're acknowledging that you can lease public property to lessees for use other than public purposes. Furthermore, the Illinois property tax system, which is a document that is generated by the Illinois Department of Revenue, states, and this is a quote, leaseholders pay property taxes on real property leased from an owner whose property is exempt. E.g., this is a quote, the state owns agricultural property and leases it to a farmer. So the Illinois property tax system is acknowledging that the counties who own farmland are leasing to private purposes, and they're providing guidance on how the tax situation should take place. If it was illegal to do that, they wouldn't pass statutes on how to handle the tax situation. I also submitted, we're going back in time, but at the March board meeting, I submitted a written opinion from Giffen Winning, a law firm in Springfield. Some of you may have forgotten about that. The law firm, I asked for an opinion from them because we didn't have the Attorney General's opinion yet. And this is a firm who represents the UCCI. We depend on them when they provide guidance for reapportionment. And they also contract with the appellate prosecutor. So they have a contract to assist state attorneys in writing opinions and providing guidance. They produced a written opinion on March 8th, 2021. I showed it and provided it to the county board at the March meeting. And they write, quote, the county does have authority to lease real estate to a private party to be used by such individual for a private farming operation for annual cash rental paid to the county as long as there's some public purpose served by doing so. Prior Attorney General opinions do not accurately state the law as it exists today. The county's receipt of money serves a public purpose because the land is generating income on land that the county would otherwise be expending resources on to maintain. In addition to that, my office contacted all 101 counties in the state of Illinois. We're number 102, so we contacted all 101 additional counties in the state of Illinois. We got responses from 98 counties. Cook and Monroe and White County did not respond, everyone else did. There are 40 counties who own farmland in this state, and of those 40, 36, and that's more than 1/3 of the counties within this state, they are leasing to private farmers. One of the Attorney General opinions from the 1970s that is frequently cited to was an Attorney General opinion issued to Logan County, advising that in the Attorney General's opinion in the 70s that it was not lawful to lease. Logan County has been leasing since then and is leasing today. They are one of the 36 counties who are leasing.
Mr. Chairman, repeat that. Did you say they said it was illegal, but they were doing it? Did you repeat that?
The 1970s Attorney General opinion ruled it was violative of the Constitution at that time before these statutes that I cited to were passed. And Logan County, because an Attorney General opinion is merely advisory, continued leasing despite the opinion, and they are still leasing the land today. There are 36 counties total that are doing it. That's more than 1/3 of the state. 4 counties which own farmland who are not leasing it. One is land that's being farmed by an adjoining landowner without a lease. One is licensing, that's Kendall County, which we've already talked about. Another county is leasing to the FFA, and then Shelby County is undecided. Other than those 4 counties, the other 36 own the land and they are leasing to private farmers.
Mr. Chairman, the FFA, that's our Future Farmers of America. Maybe that's something to look into. Just a thought.
Terry?
Yeah, Nicole, what happens if we go ahead and do it legally? Will somebody sue us?
Someone can always sue, and that leads me to the point, you can have differences of opinion. You can go all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, where you have 9 justices who are the brightest minds in the country, and you have 5 of them saying one thing and 4 of them saying the other thing. This hasn't really been litigated. This issue in particular has never been litigated. There's no case that a court has decided on the farming of a private, farming to a private farmer for profit. We have to take cases that are similar and put them together, and that's what you're trained to do in law school, and you can still go all the way up to the United States Supreme Court and have differences of opinion.
Yeah.
Even if it went completely south, what is the worst case scenario that could happen to us?
If we lease this,
Say we leased it, somebody sued us, what is the complete worst case scenario that could happen?
someone could sue for declaratory judgment. The judge could say, I agree with you, you should not be leasing, and then the county would have to stop leasing. Or they can say, I agree, you can lease, and then you would continue. Both sides, I presume, would appeal. I would go, if we go forward with this, if there is a lawsuit, if we lose that lawsuit, I would appeal. We need an appellate court decision on this issue.
So say a county resident, taxpayer, sued the county for that income on that farm. The only thing that I would see they'd be liable for is their portion of the taxes. Would that be correct or not?
It would be a lawsuit, which would be a declaratory judgment, like they would want potentially the county to be ordered to stop leasing and claim it's a violation of the Constitution.
Where would that money go then?
The money from the,
Say you lease it out, we'll just say $30,000. What happens to that money then?
in reality, by the time this got concluded, if there were a lawsuit, we would be done with farming season. The money would have been paid at that time.
Okay.
There would be no more lease that was ongoing. It wouldn't be a suit for damages if that's your question.
Right, that's what I was at.
Yes, sir.
Jesse Durbin, Shelbyville. I made my living farming, raised my family farming, and I think this is just the craziest thing, not to want to farm this ground.
discussion, Mark?
You don't mind saying fair.
I'm sorry.
I'll try not to take too long, but there's a lot of inconsistencies, I believe. I was on the farm committee, and it was my job, along with a couple other members, to find out what is legal and what is not. How can we do this legally? My first reference to show you why I done what I did when I first come to the board in February, I think it was February, January, as to what our options was. First thing is to do it legally. So when you go out on the road and the sign says 55 mph, is that a suggested speed limit? Or is that the speed limit? So what I just heard just now is, let's go ahead and run 65, even though it's 55, and see if we get stopped. Is that really the right way? I realize it costs us money. I think we have a good farmer. I don't want to see the county sell it. But I'm not gonna just go out and vote to do it if I don't know it's legal. There's a lot of things we deal with every day that we're supposed to do it legally, guys. I know it cost us money to leave, said I. But I also know that it was brought to our attention almost a year and a half ago. And nobody investigated it. Everybody sat on their hands. Nobody looked for any wording at all. Yes, we're down to a timeline here. Time crunch. If we want to get some money off of it. But is that the legal way to do it? As a committee, one of the committee members, in the last talks we had, and what still sits on the papers is, we agreed to wait till June 1st to see if the Attorney General made a response. And we've not got one yet. It's not June 1st. Probably won't happen. But that's the only legal way to do it. We do not have anything in black and white that says we can rent it out, even though we've been doing it for 50+ years. But it's been brought to our attention. Even though Nicole stated a lot of different emphases, there are a lot of things that tie to it in what she told you that has to do with leasing buildings to private purpose, that private entity was actually a nonprofit organization that was giving to the public. It wasn't actually to make money. The state was still funding them. If you read all the pages of the various ordinances, I would say, you find out there's more to it. And she also said there's been no judgment or no opinion given by the Attorney General that we can legally lease farm ground. We have found nothing that just says farmland. I'm not willing to do things illegally and find out later whether it's right or wrong. It's not just about the money in our pocket. If you divide it up amongst all the taxpayers in the county, it amounts to very, very little, less than a buck a piece. The $40,000 that we supposedly receive, we have to deduct some expenses. Part of it is the land taxes. I can't give you a number. Nicole, can you tell me approximately what it is per year for the land taxes, real estate taxes?
I remember right, it was around $5,000.
$5,900 would be $100. I was thinking 61 for this country.
Okay. $40,000 minus $6,000, that's $3,400. We have a budget in the past of $8,000 a year to help pay for line, tile repair, and any other maintenance. I cannot legally tell you what the average is that we spend. But if we had to line the whole thing, it's quite a bit of money. It would probably be over $8,000. But that's not an every year situation. It's maybe every 10 years.
We're limited to 2,000.
Yeah, 2,000 was our budget for
Okay.
line and post or.
But if all the ground needed line this year, we could spend 2,000 this year, 2,000 next year, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. Eventually, all the ground's gotta be covered. Another thing is, there's no income tax that comes out of it. What we make off of it, there's no income tax. So if we made 30,000 or a little over $30,000 profit, if an individual was farming that, Mr. Hampton pays taxes on what he profits. But the other half of what the county profits, there's no income taxes, it goes straight into the budget. So there's more money, and you know what, I've never heard one person ever say anything about that tax. So none of that money is spent in the county. Is that right? Yeah, we can make money off of it, but it's not about us making money as a county. It's about serving taxpayers and not being in a business. I don't want sold, but I also want to do it correctly. Thank you.
David?
So it's feeding people in Shelby County, not serving the taxpayers.
I'm sorry?
It's feeding the people in Shelby County, not serving the taxpayers. The food raised on that ground does not serve the taxpayers.
Okay. The one public purpose that we talked about, there's the back end and the front end. One is how we obtain the money. The other is how we spend the money. In obtaining
I'm
it,
not
it's
talking about money. I didn't say anything about money. I said food. What happens with the food? So there's 200 acres that we're not gonna use, to help feed the citizens of Shelby County.
Does that food actually feed Shelby County?
Does that crop feed Shelby County?
Barbara?
It always kind of amazes me, we have a very smart state's attorney, and we have board members that think they're smarter than the state's attorney. She's given us the legal way we can do this, and what part of it's not legal, can you not comprehend when she says it is? So if we gotta wait for 3 years and then come back and say, okay, you can't do this, well, then we stop. But until then, we keep doing it. I just can't comprehend how you think you're smarter than the state's attorney who has the law degree.
David?
What's the difference between us leasing farm ground out and the University of Illinois that is 100% funded by the state of Illinois, which is 100% funded by tax dollars?
Can I answer that? State and county are two different groups.
That brought me to,
Same thing happened.
that brought me to a question. You were making a presentation. When you reference the state can lease property the state owns, did you go back to that part? I have a question on
You talking about the actual language of the statute?
that. Yeah, I think so. But you referenced the state owning land, the state leases out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? The state owned land?
If it's acquired or held by the county is the language of the statute. We're talking about real estate that is acquired or held by the county is the language of the statute.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Brian?
I've spoken to numerous members, constituents in our district, Mr. Hyde and I's district, District 1. They look at you like you are, just can't fathom why we are not leasing this ground out. Doesn't matter if they live in the city limits of Weequa, or if they're rural, they work in Decatur in a factory, or if they are farmers. They just can't fathom why we would sit and leave something sit idle, especially when the county can have income. And our state's attorney has given us an avenue to lease this out. Thank you.
Terry?
Yeah, earlier, Nicole, you said something about that these statutes rule over the Attorney General's opinion. So let's say tomorrow the Attorney General hands this down. Will the new excuse be that statute rules over it and you guys don't agree with the statute, obviously? So that's gonna give you the opening to not agree with the Attorney General because statute rules over the Attorney General, correct?
Yes, a statute supersedes an attorney general opinion.
So
Statute
why
is
are
law.
we waiting on an Attorney General opinion?
If we have a statute.
They may give an opinion on this particular statute that we're talking about tonight, and we can weigh their opinion and decide if we want to follow their opinion.
Uh-huh.
But you said it was legal to do.
But we still will fall back on statute.
They would potentially be interpreting the statute just as I have tonight.
Right.
You know, they would give their opinion on what the purpose of the statute is, doing a similar analysis to what I have done.
Right.
Patty?
Okay, I'm not gonna use you guys, us guys, or any other guys or gals. I think we're better than that there.
Mm-hmm.
We're all here to represent our constituents, fine, awesome job, and for talking to your constituents. Thank you for doing that. I've been doing exactly the same thing. When I talk to my constituents in District 11, I have 87 people who tell me they want me to vote no. I have 2 people that want me to vote yes.
Yeah.
And of those 2, one of them was in my district. I passed them back to Gary Patterson and your next district.
Did you ask them about the city of Shelby doing the very same thing, even though they do have a law, they can do it, but it's affecting taxpayers too?
I asked them how they wanted me to vote on the agenda tonight. I didn't talk about it.
Why don't you talk about that? You're complaining about the county, why don't you complain about the city of Shelby?
They didn't elect me to complain about the city. of
You're
Shelby.
paying taxes there
They
too.
elected me to represent
You're paying
them.
taxes there too.
They elected me to be their voice on the county. Period. And I'm here to only voice my constituents.
You don't care about the
I didn't say that.
well,
That's not the discussion. The discussion is here.
same thing?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Gentlemen, let's keep the discussion to farm.
That's what the discussion was on the farm, in here, today. And I was elected to represent 22 people and be their voice, and I'm going to be their voice the way they want me to. I'm one of those.
I have Gary back here. Are you, Pat, are you done?
Yes,
I just like to report that I'm like Brian, I've had more people approach me and call me in the last 2 weeks than I have talked to in the 2.5 years I've been on this board. And as of this moment, 100% of those people said they wanted this farm farmed. And it was somewhere between 20 and 25 people. And just based on what they have read in the newspaper articles, what they heard in town, they contacted me, asked me what was going on. I confirmed what they read was correct. And 100% of them said we want the farm farmed, and unless we hear something different, none of them wanted the farm sold either.
John?
Mr. Chairman, I just have to ask a question. Does that include all those postcards that were sent out last week?
Actually, several of them were called because of postcards.
Can I ask you to vote no?
Yes, there were postcards sent to my district that asked me to vote no,
Okay.
and actually, over half of those people that called me back received that postcard and said, we don't want you to do this. We want you to farm that farm. So I thank the guys that sent out the postcards because I did have people contact me and they did tell me they wanted to farm the farm.
Surely did.
And I'm in his district and I didn't get any
Good,
postcards.
that's good.
And so have your people send me one.
They don't like you.
Obviously, that's why you didn't get it.
I never got one.
Okay, one discussion. Any other discussion on the plan?
Right.
When you send anything to the Attorney General, this must not have been real urgent, when you send it on January. Is there an urgency?
I've called their office 4 or 5 times, and I would say, if we don't have a decision, by this month, it's gonna be too late to farm, and they make a note of that, but they say they cannot give me a date when they will have it done, because they serve 102 counties, and they said it's been assigned to an attorney who is working on it, but they cannot give me a date. It's kind of it is out of my control.
If Nicole says it's legal, what is
Constitution. This is sort of a constitutional issue for me. If we don't follow that, I don't know what we've got. But the AG opinions, if that's superseded by statute, I certainly would think the Constitution would overrule their opinion, but they actually reference back to our state constitution, those AG opinions, which is still in place. It's Article 8, Section 1. It says public funds, property, or credit shall only be used for public purposes. To me, that's it. That's the ultimate authority. Until we have an AG opinion that says all the previous ones were wrong and I'm going to disregard the state constitution, I'm still a no on this, so.
Don?
Nicole is putting income into the county treasury, which is used for county operation. Would that be considered public purpose?
That's my opinion, and part of it is based on the transcript from the legislative debate. When the statute that we're talking about was passed, the quote is, they see this as an opportunity to gain some additional revenue. It relieves the taxpayer of its burden when you're bringing money into the county to support the general fund of the county.
Any other discussion?
I got another question. If we don't do nothing with that this summer, and we get a bunch of water hemp and thistle and everything out there, them are noxious weeds, and I think Brian brought that up last time. And that is against the law to have noxious weeds. We gotta control them weeds. Or you will have some lawsuits.
And the state department of ag on us.
Referencing what Jesse's subject was, talking to Brian, now, if not just weeds, if I got property next there and your weeds get on my property, now can I sue you?
They would more than likely turn you into the, State Department of Ag, and from there would be a formal complaint, and the State Department would send out inspectors, and then they would force you to do something.
Could they also fine me?
I would assume there could be a fine if you're not a nice person, and do that.
So that would cost us more money.
It could be because you, yes.
There is a penalty to that daily. When you don't take care of it, you get fined on a regular basis until it is taken care of.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
How many, what's the number of pass on this?
It's still 3/4, correct?
Well, we got
Yes,
one not here.
17.
But we got one not here, so that.
It doesn't change it if someone's not here because it's, 3/4 of the sitting board, not those who are present.
Okay,
So you still need 17.
want that clarification. Thank you.
Which way you go, yes, or, yes?
If you vote yes, you're in favor of the ordinance to lease the farm at the discretion of the county
That
board.
would be with the motion, right?
That is the motion.
Earl Baker,
No.
Kenny Moore,
Yes.
Barbara Bennett,
Yes.
Mark Bennett,
No.
Paul Canady,
No.
Brian Kaufman,
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivich,
Yes.
Jesse Durbin,
Yes.
Gary Gergany,
No.
Rod Height,
Yes.
Larry Lenz,
Yes.
Pat Lyons,
No.
Terry Metzger,
Yes.
Bobby Warman,
No.
Gary Patterson,
Yes.
Derek Piercy,
No.
John Poe,
No.
Robert Simpson,
Yes.
Jeff Slifer,
Yes.
David Switz,
Yes.
Don Tate,
Yes.
and Lynn Williams is absent, so the vote is 13 yes to 8 no. Motion fails.
So you guys think you're smarter than Nicole. Can't believe it.
You're smarter than you are. You
Not
just keep
hardly,
walking like a
not
parrot.
hardly,
Earl, order please.
Tell her order.
Order please. David back here.
Can I ask for the people that voted no to stand up and say why they voted no?
Sure, I'll start. As I said earlier, David, I voted no because 87 of my constituents that I spoke to said they expected me to vote no. 2 told me they expected me to vote yes. Out of 2,200 and something, I think I got to talk to them all. For the least I got to talk to them.
Pretty easy to talk to mine. Mine, Carlos got set up, never raised any call.
Thank you, Pat. So, the reason I voted no is when I took office, I stood right here in front of the board, and I took an oath, and it goes, I do solemnly swear to affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office to the best of my ability. Article 8, line 1 of the Constitution says, public funds, property, and credit shall be used only for public purpose. As soon as we lease to a private individual, that private individual is taking benefit from a public land and is negating everybody else's ability to go on that land. So, for the term of this, I've heard the comment, I've gotten phone calls, trying to, get me to change to leased land. And the comment was made that we have lots of troubles in our state legislature and our federal government. And quite frankly, I believe it starts right here of following at least something in the Constitution. That way, at least if any of us make it into legislature, or anybody that watches what happens here goes to the state or federal level, maybe they'll have an indication that what's in the black and white letter is what's black and white. Thank you.
I've had conversations with a lot of people in my area. The last week, I got one phone call wanting me to change my vote, and I got one email. Up to that point, by far the majority of the people would say that I talked to get rid of it. It's a headache. If it's going to be a problem, take the money, invest it, use the interest off of it that we can earn from investing the money, which is legal.
One other thing I'd like to point out is, I myself am a landowner in Shelby County. I don't live close to this farm. Neither do my constituents. They are probably 30 plus miles away. I don't think it's fair for me to approve a lease that they would have to travel extra distance and make extra care in their practice just to be able to have a competitive lease. Do I think it's fair to the citizens of Shelbyville, the city citizens of Windsor, Strasburg, that don't have a feasible, capable means of leasing the farmland? I don't think it's fair to those constituents either. So this is a discretionary thing, in my opinion. And there's also a little back history on it. Back in January, February, we looked at all the options. We knew the 1970 AG opinion said you cannot lease farmland, specifically farmland. And then we started the discussion of the licensing agreement, which to be truthful, the licensing agreement is what got sent to the AG for opinion, not the grant product, right?
No, the lease got sent to the Attorney General.
So the licensing never did?
No.
Okay.
I can send it, but it was gonna push us back to the beginning, so I didn't.
Right. But back in February, we knew, hands down, I believe it was in discussions, probably in the minutes, or at least on the audio, that everybody knew that leasing and renting was off the table. So I have a hard time putting the black and white letter into a yes vote when we all knew at one time that it was off the table. So there's a lot of thought and consideration. I'm a farmer myself. I do not like to see land go. I would concur with anybody that said the acquisition of ground, the maintaining of ground is paramount. But in government, that is not the goal, that is not the end goal, that is not what we're here for. And it should be dispersed, no should have been done in 1968 after the 1967 legislature abolished the poor farm. Unfortunately, that never happened. So now we're dealing with 50 to 60 years of this is how it's been. And now, like has been mentioned, we've been called out on the red carpet, and now we have to speak for it. So that's why I voted the way I have.
I'm gonna tell you several reasons. First of all, I helped get Nicole elected, and I appreciate what she's done. And the struggle that I've had with this is just not one day or one night. I go back to looking at public purpose. You see, Derek mentioned public purpose. A lot of the things you read in the different documents says public purpose. I looked up public purpose, and it talks about an identifiable purpose. What is the purpose? Somebody would say farm ground. Like we're going to talk about feeding people, you know. ADM, feeds the world, they say. Are we in the business of farming? Or are we in the business of governing a county? If we're going to be in the business of farming, we need to start buying farm ground and start farming it and making profit and making money and supporting our county and alleviate all of our taxpayers not having to pay any taxes. Because why? Because we can afford the farm ground. But that's not my purpose, to get into the business of farming. My business here is elected to help run the county. And the county don't need to be in business. And I heard someone said about competing against our farmers. That was a very good statement, whoever made that. We don't need to be competing against our farmers. Because first of all, we could turn it into you look at our communist countries, the government owns their farm ground. To my farmers, I love you. I know a lot of farmers. That a farmer told me. But I don't want the county to be turning into farm business. So that's why I would vote, that's why I voted no.
I sort of explained mine already too, but I think I've mentioned this before, but if a county, well here, let me back up. Constitution, first of all, is meant to restrain the government, not the people, okay? If a county can own some farm ground, then they can own all of the farm ground. And they can use your tax money to buy it. It's a lot of collective buying power, and then they're gonna rent it back to you. If you wanna go down that road, I don't know. It's kind of dangerous. Anyway, that's why.
I voted no, and I could have been on the fence to vote yes, to be around farming my whole life. But you know, nobody ever debated with me what the problem was. I hear all this verbiage back here about you're crazy, you shouldn't be doing this and that. But we've never been debating. We've done all this research, all the people standing up there and don't know. We've done tons of research and tons of research, but not one person, I don't think, has ever debated this. I mean, in a general, not relevant, screaming debate about why you're so adamant about doing your leasing. And I'm open to debate anytime. You know, I'm easy to be sold if you got a black and white. But I'm not, you haven't heard one debate about this issue. And I could easily listen to hours of debate about it. And very good, particularly about the law, the statutes, the Constitution, like Gary has done. But we've done a lot of research, guys, and not much feedback from what everybody else has to say about it. You know what I mean?
We move on.
That's my duty to look this way, so that's what I do.
Has everybody spoke?
Yes.
Move on. We'll go back to item 4, discussion and informational vote by the board members on reapportionment. Anybody have anything they'd like to present on reapportionment? To get started, I did reach out to ECCI, got back the 2 lawsuits that were settled in Madison County and one up north, right? And I spoke with the Jason Brokaw, the attorney up there. And what he was illustrating was that the Constitution superseded the statute. Because the Constitution was ratified, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the Constitution was ratified in '70, the statute was written prior to 1970. So, what you were referencing earlier about the referendum and that part, it's, yeah, I think we need a motion on the floor to start saying something. If we're gonna take a vote, information